Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be diving in again.
Today, we're really zooming in on just one chapter from a massive ancient epic, chapter 4 specifically.
Yeah, it's a powerhouse of a chapter. So much happens. Luxury, grief, recognition, magic, prophecy. It's packed.
Exactly. We've gone through the key texts and commentary to kind of pull out the core essence for you. Think of it as the highlight reel, but with all the important lessons intact.
We want to unpack what makes this chapter tick, why it's such a crucial part of the larger story, and maybe why it still resonates.
All right, we're basically eavesdropping on some pretty intense moments that reveal a lot and set up what comes next. It covers so much ground, doesn't it? From Sparta's riches to, well, the bottom of the sea.
It really does. It touches on huge themes: homecoming, loss, divine help, ancient customs. It's a window into their world.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Telemachus, Odysseus' son, he arrives in Sparta with his friend Pisistratus. What's that arrival like?
Oh, it's described as just stunning. They get to the palace of Menelaus and Helen, and the text says it felt illuminated as if by the sun or moon.
Wow. So incredibly bright, opulent. Must have been mind-blowing for that.
Absolutely. Total awe. Remember, Telemachus is coming from Ithaca, which is facing its own serious problems. This is a different world, pure splendor.
And the welcome they get is pretty immediate and elaborate, isn't it?
Oh, totally. This is Xenia, ancient Greek hospitality in action, like textbook level. Before they even really know who these guests are, they're whisked away.
Whisked away how?
Baths, being rubbed down with olive oil, given fresh cloaks, new tunics, the works. And then they're seated right next to King Menelaus himself. Places of honor.
It really paints a picture of ideal hosting. What about the meal?
Just as detailed. The source mentions a servant bringing water in a golden pitcher over a silver basin just for hand washing.
Fancy hand washing.
Right. Then polished tables, loads of food described as tasty delicacies, and wine flowing in golden goblets. It's all about showing generosity, status, and crucially respect for the guests. It's a fundamental duty.
So a perfect picture of welcome. But things shift pretty quickly, don't they, with Helen's entrance?
They do. Helen comes in, and it's a pivotal moment. The source says she looks at Telemachus and instantly knows who he is.
Instantly. How?
It's described as an intuitive thing. The resemblance to his father, Odysseus, is apparently so strong, so unmistakable, she just sees it. No explanation needed.
That must have been intense, seeing the face of his missing father, basically, after 20 years.
Exactly. And that recognition, combined with just talking about Odysseus, his long absence, the hardships, it just opens the floodgates.
A wave of sadness, you mean?
A huge wave. The text is specific here. Tears are shed by everyone. Menelaus cries, remembering his friend. Telemachus cries for the father he misses. Even Pisistratus is moved to tears. And Helen cries too.
So Odysseus' story, his absence, it casts a really long shadow that affects everyone deeply.
Profoundly. It shows the shared trauma and connections stemming from the war and its aftermath. His fate isn't just a private family matter, it's a communal weight.
And this is where things get, well, a bit strange from our perspective. How do they deal with this intense shared grief?
Helen does something really unexpected. She secretly puts a special substance, described as a drug, into the wine everyone's drinking.
A drug? Seriously, what kind of drug?
The text calls it nepenthe. It's supposed to banish grief and sorrow, make everyone forget their troubles and stop crying, at least for the day.
Wow, like an ancient antidepressant or something. That's wild.
It is. The source even says it came from Egypt, which was famous for potent herbs and medicines, some good, some bad. It's a fascinating glimpse into how they might have coped with overwhelming emotion, not just by being stoic, but with actual chemical assistance.
So it works, it shifts the mood.
Apparently so. It allows them to move past the weeping and actually start sharing stories, specifically stories about Odysseus during the Trojan War, and Helen kicks it off.
What story does she tell?
She talks about when Odysseus snuck into Troy disguised as a beggar to spy. And she makes a point of saying she was the only one who recognized him.
Ah, so she saw through his famous cleverness. That puts her in a pretty important position in the story.
Exactly. She claims she even helped him, bathed him, gave him oil, new clothes, and swore an oath not to reveal his identity to the Trojans.
And this infiltration helped the Greeks.
According to her story, yes. The information Odysseus gathered helped him kill many Trojans later and aided the Achaean victory. So it shows Odysseus's cunning, but also frames Helen as perceptive and, perhaps surprisingly, helpful to him.
Okay, so that's Helen's story. Then Menelaus tells one too, right, about the wooden horse.
He does, and his story adds another layer of complexity, maybe even ambiguity, to Helen.
How so?
He describes being inside the wooden horse, waiting silently, and Helen walks around the outside. But here's the strange part. She starts calling out to the hidden heroes, mimicking the voices of their wives.
Whoa. Trying to trick them into answering. That sounds incredibly dangerous for them.
Extremely dangerous. Menelaus says Odysseus and Diomedes literally had to clamp their hands over the mouths of some men to stop them from shouting back and giving away the whole ambush.
So what was Helen doing? Was she trying to betray them?
It's unclear. The text hints maybe a god prompted her. Was it malicious? Was it a test? Or just a weird, divinely inspired impulse? It leaves you wondering about her loyalties and motives right at the war's end. It's not simple.
Definitely adds intrigue. So after the war stories, the focus shifts to getting home, which wasn't easy for Menelaus either, was it?
Not at all. He tells Telemachus about his own brutal journey, getting blown way off course, stuck on an island for ages, completely lost.
It sounds rough. How did he finally get unstuck? Another god involved.
Yep. A minor sea goddess, Idothea. She's the daughter of Proteus, the old man of the sea. She takes pity on Menelaus and tells him the only way to find out how to get home is to capture her father.
Capture a sea god? How do you even do that? Especially one called the Old Man of the Sea.
Well, Idothea warns him it's going to be tough. Proteus is a shapeshifter. He can turn into anything.
Anything? Like what?
Like a lion, a snake, a leopard, a boar, even running water or a burning tree. Anything. Earthly, water, fire, you name it.
Okay, so how do you hold on to that?
That's the key. Idothea tells Menelaus he and his men have to ambush Proteus when he comes ashore to sleep with his seals. Yeah, seals, and then grab him and hold on tight, no matter what horrifying shape he takes. Just keep holding him.
Just hold on. Through fire and lions and stuff.
Exactly. They have to maintain their grip through all the transformations until he finally gives up and returns to his true form. Only then will he be forced to speak the truth.
That's an incredible image. Talk about perseverance. Did they manage it?
They did. It must have been terrifying, but they held on. And once Proteus was himself again, he had to talk.
And what truths did he reveal? This must be where the really crucial info comes out.
Absolutely. Proteus becomes this unwilling oracle, and the first big revelation is about Menelaus' own brother, Agamemnon, the leader of the Greeks at Troy.
And it's not good news, I take it.
It's devastating news. Proteus tells Menelaus in stark, brutal detail that Agamemnon made it home only to be murdered.
Murdered? By who?
By Aegisthus, the guy who had shacked up with Agamemnon's wife, Clytemnestra, while the king was away fighting for 10 years. Proteus says Aegisthus butchered him like an ox in its stall, just slaughtered him and all his men at a feast.
Oh my God, that's horrific. How did Menelaus take that, hearing about his own brother?
It shattered him. The text says his heart broke. He just collapsed on the sand weeping, saying he didn't even want to live anymore after hearing that. Complete and utter devastation. It shows the brutal reality that even for the victors, homecoming could be deadly.
Such a heavy blow. Did Proteus offer any better news? Specifically about Odysseus? That's what Telemachus came for.
Yes, thankfully. After the awful news about Agamemnon, Proteus confirms that Odysseus is still alive.
Alive? That's huge. But where is he?
He's being held captive on an island by the nymph Calypso. He's alive, but he's stuck. He can't leave, can't get home. So alive, but not free.
Still, knowing he's alive must have been something for Telemachus. What about Menelaus himself? Did Proteus tell him how he could finally get home?
He did. Proteus told him the reason he was stranded was because he'd angered the gods by not offering the proper sacrifices before leaving Troy or maybe Egypt. So the solution was he had to sail back to Egypt and make large, formal sacrifices.
So a religious duty he'd neglected. Shows how important that was. Appease the gods, find your way home.
Pretty much. You had to follow the rules, keep the gods happy, or face the consequences. It cost Menelaus a lot of time and suffering.
So while all this drama is unfolding in Sparta, the recognition, the grief, the magic drug, the sea god prophecies, the chapter also cuts back to Ithaca, right? To show what's happening with Penelope.
Yeah, it gives us that important parallel perspective. Back home, the herald Medadon tells Penelope that Telemachus has secretly sailed off seeking news of Odysseus.
And how does she react to her son leaving too?
It hits her hard. On top of missing Odysseus for 20 years, now her son is gone on a dangerous journey without her even knowing. The text calls it heart-destroying grief. She's just overwhelmed.
Another wave of intense sorrow. Does she get any kind of comfort or information?
Well, sort of. In her distress, the goddess Athena sends her a phantom, like a dream image, while she's sleeping.
A phantom from Athena. Does it tell her if Odysseus is okay?
Penelope asks the phantom directly, is Odysseus alive or dead? But the phantom is incredibly vague. It says something like, I can't really tell you details. It's bad to just chatter like the wind.
Seriously, that's not very helpful.
Not really. It implies he's not dead, maybe, which is something, but it doesn't give her the solid news she desperately needs before it vanishes. It really highlights how hard it was to get reliable information, even from potentially divine sources. So much uncertainty.
Okay, so looking back at this whole chapter, the welcome, the weeping, Helen's remedy, the Trojan tales, Proteus' capture and revelations, Penelope's grief, and that frustrating phantom. What are the big takeaways here? What does this chapter really hammer home?
I think a few key things stand out. First, definitely the power of family ties and recognition. Helen seeing Odysseus and Telemachus, Menelaus' reaction to Agamemnon's death, these bonds are incredibly strong.
Right. And then there's the way they cope with intense emotions, right? It's not just stiff upper lip.
Not at all. You have the formal structure of hospitality, but then you have this almost magical drug to numb overwhelming sorrow. It shows a complex approach to dealing with grief and loss.
It also paints a pretty grim picture of what heroes face coming home from war, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Menelaus' struggles, Agamemnon's horrific murder. It completely dismantles any idea that just surviving the war meant you were safe. The journey home and home itself could be just as dangerous.
And the role of the supernatural seems crucial throughout.
Definitely. Getting vital information or overcoming obstacles often required divine help, like from Ithaca or wrestling with supernatural beings like Proteus. Even the information network relied on gods or phantoms, however vague they might be. You couldn't just Google it, you know?
Yeah, definitely not. And finally, that thread of uncertainty runs through everything.
It really does. The constant emotional strain of not knowing. Penelope's anguish, Telemachus' quest, Menelaus being lost, it all stems from lack of information, lack of closure. And that feeling, that anxiety about the unknown, especially concerning loved ones, that feels incredibly relatable, even thousands of years later.
It really does connect across time, that longing for certainty.
Oh.
So as a final thought for you listening, maybe consider all the different ways truth and deception weave through this chapter.
Yeah, you've got Helen's instant recognition, which seems like pure truth. But then Odysseus' disguise is pure deception. Proteus transforms, hiding his true form until forced to speak truth. Helen might be deceiving the men and the horse. And that phantom, it gives information, but in the most evasive way possible.
How do we figure out what's real when things are hidden or shifting or deliberately obscured? It's a question this chapter really forces us to think about, then and now.
A great point to ponder. This chapter gives us so much a slice of ancient life, intense emotion, and deep questions.
Absolutely. We hope this deep dive into Chapter 4 has given you some valuable insights and a feel for its richness.
It's been great exploring it.
Subscribe for more amazing stories in this podcast. See you next time.